Of all the anomalies in classical Jewish writings, none is more profound or more instructive than what the Torah tells us about Moses. According to the biblical tradition, Moses is at the same time the greatest of all leaders and the most humble of all men. From the perspective of our Western sensibilities, nothing could be more counterintuitive. When we consider how our society and our culture depict strong leaders, ideas such as bold, decisive, and unwavering come to mind. The notion that a strong leader is first and foremost a humble individual seems antithetical to everything we've been taught and to everything we observe in our movies, in our corporations, in our electoral processes, and on our athletic fields of play. I know that, like many, I began my own career as a leader believing that humility is tantamount to weakness and ineptitude, not bold leadership. And yet in Judaism, beginning with Moses himself, humility is not only not a sign of weakness, it is instrumental for strong and effective leadership. In this context, humility is not simply an admirable personality trait, an attribute worth emulating. No, humility is an essential tool for all who aspire to great leadership. When an individual is arrogant, she is unable to forge the bonds of respect and trust with followers necessary to lead effectively. The Torah, and later Moses Maimonides, insist that even the most powerful of all leaders, the monarchs of ancient Israel, who might have been expected to behave in an officious and unilateral fashion, even the kings were obligated to conduct themselves, according to the Rambam, in a spirit of great humility. The traits we so often associate with high office, haughtiness, entitlement, and condescension, are the very characteristics to be avoided by those in positions of power. As the British theologian Louis Jacobs taught, greatness and humility in Judaism are not incompatible. They complement each other. The greater the man, the more humble he is expected to be. The Talmudic sages understood that no human leader is flawless. And rather than create the false expectation of perfection in leadership, the rabbis set a different standard. The standard of the humble leader, whose very vulnerabilities enhance his efficacy as a leader. Indeed, failure is transcended by its own acknowledgement. One should not appoint anyone administrator of a community, taught the rabbis, unless he carries a basket of reptiles on his back. That is something reprehensible in his background, so that if he becomes arrogant, one could tell him, turn around. Now consider, if you will, how this differs from the dominant approach to errant leaders in America. Of course, the rabbis weren't seeking to elevate miscreants over saints. Surely they insisted that leaders aspire to excellence. But what the rabbis understood is that to be truly effective, Followers must relate to their leaders as human beings, not worship them as deities. Leaders with humility increase their effectiveness when followers identify with them, shortcomings and all. Moreover, the humble leader sets the standard for her followers, modeling the behavior required for personal accountability and, when necessary, the admission of failure. The great teacher of leadership, Peter Drucker, was fond of reminding his students that tough problems get solved only when leaders bring their ignorance, not what they are sure they know, to the process of difficult decision-making. Individuals who possess what is sometimes referred to as epistemological modesty, that is, the willingness to say, I think I am right, but I might be wrong. Only those humble leaders are capable of truly listening and learning from others, of asking more and telling less. Certainty left unchecked becomes arrogance, and it closes us off from others. It prevents us from asking tough questions, and it makes for flawed decisions and bad leadership. Anava, humility in Judaism, is not self-deprecation. As my teacher Byron Sherwin observes, humility is not the opposite of self-esteem, but of pride. Larry Bossidy, co-author of the wonderful book Execution, reminds each one of us that humility is not a question of thinking less of yourself. It's a question of thinking of yourself less. And when leaders think of themselves less, they have more time to do what really matters, grow the leadership of others. Humble leaders understand the value of what the Kabbalists called tzimtzum, self-contraction, the necessity of being small in order to become great. In my own experiences as a chief executive officer, I have learned that shining the light on others does not diminish my own leadership. Indeed, leadership is a renewable energy source. Like lighting a candle from another candle, we expand the light of others without reducing our own. This is the essence of what Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, famously calls Level 5 leadership. Contrary to the notion that only leaders with oversized egos are capable of transforming a company from good to great, Collins found that greatness comes from leaders with an uncompromising commitment to humility. Level 5 leaders shun the hot spotlight for themselves, routinely crediting others with the success of their organization. They know, as Yogi Berra used to say, it ain't the heat, it's the humility that counts. Now, I don't suppose that Yogi was thinking about the American Jewish community when he said that, but his words offer a cautionary tale. All of the data we have today about the rapidly changing nature of Jewish life in America make it clear that unless our communities and those who lead them reject the arrogance of cocksureness, we will continue to lose more and more young Jews in our congregations and our organizations. Generation X and Generation Y already appreciate the importance of humility in leadership. They know the value of collaboration and of wikis, of open sourcing, and of flattened organizations. They understand, as the career of Moses makes clear, that humility is not a sign of weak leadership. On the contrary, individuals who acknowledge their limitations, reveal their vulnerability, and empower others are better leaders. Hierarchical, top-down, command and control enterprises in which power is hoarded, not shared, by leaders who rarely think about the future of their organizations beyond their own tenures, these are rapidly becoming vestiges of a bygone era. Gone too are the days when the leader is necessarily the smartest person in the room. Indeed, in the 21st century, the leader is less likely to be the expert and more likely to be the convener of experts. If our 21st century Jewish organizations expect to compete in this environment, we would be well advised to embrace the wisdom of our own tradition of humility in leadership before it is too late. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Eli Talks. Click through or subscribe to the Eli Talks channel for more inspired Jewish ideas.